Best overall films of the year.
Take it away.
Number 3. By the way, we're going to do a list of movies that we didn't see that we want to see, just so you guys in the comments don't get too mad at us with you'd be like, that should be in the list or that. So for our top 10, it was action only, right? And then
Stuff that we've seen, yeah.
And stuff that we've seen. So there's stuff that we haven't seen that we'll get to. But these were 3 of our favorite films, just overall, that weren't technically action, but here we go. Number 3, The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Michelle Williams, Gabrielle LaBelle, Paul Dano, Seth Rogen, Matteo Zorian, Keely Karsten, and Alina Brace. If you like filmmaking, you're gonna probably enjoy this movie. It's about a kid who is in the Boy Scouts. He gets into filmmaking. There's stuff going on in his family that I won't ruin, but he falls in love with the art of filmmaking. And then, it follows him and his family and their life and how that passion for filmmaking grows and how it connects with his life and his family's life. And I think Spielberg kind of redeemed himself with this one. And in my mind, look, you're an all-time legend. You didn't need to redeem yourself. You're Steven Spielberg. But there were a few of his films recently that I didn't really connect with, but this one reminded me how good of a director Spielberg is and why he's one of the greatest of all time, and how he's able to capture that magic of filmmaking. It reminded me of like Scorsese with Hugo a little bit, where it's like you have this all-time great director kind of making a film about a boy and their passion for cinema and their relationship with filmmaking and how they get into it. And I
think from an outside perspective looking in, it does sound like, obviously it's not like a biopic, but I would say, that sounds like a homage to Spielberg's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A boy with maybe some family troubles at home and fell in love with cinema and kind of takes you on a journey.
Remember we asked Todd Garner, like, did you put a little bit of yourself into that film?
Yeah.
And he's like, how can you not?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And I think that kind of, like you said, applies here with Spielberg, right? I think you nailed it.
Well, that's like, it's a classic Spielberg move to have that, E.T., there's a bunch of films where he puts that father figure is missing, or is not there, or even though missing and not there are the same thing. And, he tells stories in that way that you can connect to that father figure, and something else either replaces it or he grows or heals in different ways. So he does a very good job at that. So this sounds like it's right up that alley,
Yeah, for sure.
I love Spielberg, dude. He's freaking awesome.
Moving on to number 2, The Banshees of Inisherin, directed by Martin McDonagh, starring Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Carrie Condon, Pat Short, Gary Lydon. This one is essentially, if you like In Bruges, you're going to like this. Same director, same cast, same genre, kind of dark comedy, but still has emotional depth with incredible performances. So, it's very hard to walk that tightrope of pulling on your heartstrings, making you laugh, and maintaining that consistent tone throughout a film. But this one really did it for me. And I really, really enjoyed this one and encourage everyone to go see it. It's definitely my number 2. We're continuing on. We're not getting too much in depth because we're getting to number 1. The number 1 film for me this year, not even close, The Whale. I think Brendan Fraser should absolutely win the Oscar for this performance. I don't think there's anything else that I would even say comes close to this for me. Directed by Darren Aronofsky, obviously, Requiem for a Dream, The Wrestler, etc. Starring Brendan Fraser, Sadie Sink, Ty Simpkins, Hong Chow, Samantha Morton. it's tough to talk about this movie because it's not something that you typically rave about. It's based off a play, and it takes place in one location primarily. But Darren Aronofsky does that intentionally to make you feel claustrophobic, like the main character does and is, because he can't leave his apartment because he weighs however much it is, 600 pounds plus, dealing with obesity. And it's a very serious topic. However, it's really about addiction. And in his case, a food addiction, and how you identify with your illness. And that can translate into shame, like how he doesn't show his body for the class he teaches online as a professor. And you can really substitute any addiction in there, and it would be the same exact story, which is why I think the critics think it's like fat shaming for some reason, which is really not. It's about addiction. Sometimes critics can only see the surface level attributes of a character and comment on that without seeing the depth of what the filmmaker is really trying to get at. And that's pretty frustrating on this film, because it only has like a 60-something% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a tragedy and complete BS, with an audience score of like a 94. Clearly it resonated with the audience. And Brendan Fraser is number one for this. I literally, during the last like 20 minutes, had to look at the side of the theater wall. I couldn't watch because it was so emotional.
Wow.
Like, this film shows the absolute depths of depravity that the human soul can reach, while also the incredible heights of beauty and amazingness that the human spirit and psyche can display. It's both. It shows both. And Brendan Fraser represents both in his character. He's simultaneously horribly addicted to food, while also will do anything he possibly can to connect with his daughter, given that, in the very first scene of the film, we find out that he only has about a week to live. And it's about that man's struggle to do anything he can to make sure his daughter has a good life when he passes, even though, they're estranged and haven't spent much time together. And I don't want to ruin the film for you, because I really do want you to go out and watch this movie. Darren Aronofsky is an incredible director, and Brendan Fraser hasn't acted in anything in over a decade, and comes back and delivers this performance, which I think should hands down get him the Oscar. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Brendan Fraser came out of left field with this one, and he is such a, I think even just watching his speeches that, he's given and the response that people have had to this film, it just shows his true character as a person. And growing up watching, The Mummy and so many, I went back and I've seen a couple films since this one came out of his that I've never seen before. And just seeing, he's this quirky, he's a little different, but he's a handsome dude. He's a very kind guy. And it just shows across the board that he was able to connect with this character in a way that I think not many people would have been able to do at the level that he did, and really pay it justice. And he's just, he was the man for the job. And I think that it showed, and obviously, it's the number one best overall pick that we have. And it's not going to get better in 2022 than that.
Hell yeah, man. Films are supposed to make you feel. That is in my mind, what a film should do. And no other film in the last 5 years made me feel what I felt in this movie. Thanks for watching Studio 22.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell.
Thanks for tuning in to Studio 22.